we'll start in a couple of minutes, but I don't know about the rest of you. I haven't really been sleeping that much. I slept 3 or 4 hours election night. I slept a couple hours the night after that, and I slept maybe like 4 or 5 hours last night. And it's just the world's really holding its breath at the moment. Um, and we'll get into this all in a minute or two. We're going to talk a bit about the election, but more than about the election, I want to talk about some people who I don't know if I want to call them snakes or are just not helpful. Are not helpful, who are giving in. Rain, get off of my computer. She had her paw like right over the off button because she was like jumping on it, and she's turned it off once before, and I don't want her to do it again. She's in full on crazy mode. Cats are crepuscular, so in Toronto right now it's 8 a.m., so it's the morning, so she's just going crazy and bounding off the walls and stuff like that. But she's a good girl, aren't you, Rain? Yep, she's a good girl. No, Vera, I do take melatonin. It doesn't really help that much. Um, I just have insomnia. I've always had insomnia. The problem is that the sleeping pills that my doctor prescribed me make me extremely hungry. Um, I have Zopiclone, and if I take Zopiclone, then it makes me like I just put on weight like crazy if I take those. The problem is they're kind of like a tranquilizer or something like that. So yeah, just sipping my coffee. Like I said, we'll start in a minute. I don't know if people are getting tired of this, but I have to do these because otherwise I'm just gonna like snap because it's all I can do at the moment. Is just kind of shout out into the wind and kind of share this. I think a lot of you guys are really fucking pissed off and frustrated, and there's nothing any of us can really do at the moment. So I'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll start. So probably more people will show up eventually. Oh, actually, you know what? Oh, just give me a second. Just give me a second. Torellian might come on. Um, yeah, the audio is working. I'm just kind of uh, a little okay. Um, okay, so Trillian's gonna go on. Okay, so Turlian's going to join us with his hot takes after I'm done kind of my opening monologue. Okay, so thank you everybody for being with me this morning. It's a rough time. I think before we get into anything in particular, I just want to say I think we should stop using the term cope. I'm going to try to. You can yell at me if I use it, even in the context of people we're against, because I'm really tired of it. Like, it's used as a way to. It's like I'm trying to think of what another example is. It's like a catty, snarky, cunty way to dismiss people who actually care. It's like one of those like, oh, I'm so cool because I don't care. It's like some '90s punk, like that kind of thing. Um, it's that sort of thing. So it's I think like because when they're using it is they're like, well, we want to deal with the electoral fraud. And they're like, oh, electoral fraud is cope, man. It's just cope. Well, Trump should challenge this in the courts. That's just cope, man, because it's just a form of gaslighting. Because it's anything that kind of implies that your beliefs or your opinions aren't a product of yourself but come from some sort of external thing. I mean, is cope a real thing? Yes. People believe stuff all the time that they don't think is true. Um, that sort of thing. Um, and I mean, I cope, you cope, we all do, but I don't think it's helpful because a lot of people, even people who are supposedly on the right, are saying, "Oh, the electoral fraud thing is cope. We can't look into this. We just have to give up and accept Biden won." And I mean, literally, the least thing you can do, and I think this says something about some people. That the absolute least thing you can do is just not give up. Is just say Biden, at the very least, until uh, all the legal challenges are resolved, all the ballots are counted, until like everything's been done, you don't give up. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are saying that's cope, and I think that's frankly retarded. Even if you are someone who believes in democracy, I don't understand why it's an unreasonable position when we've seen plenty of evidence that there was shenanigans to want there to be proper investigation and oversight. Like, I don't understand how that's like psychological, um, some sort of psychological problem to say, okay, well, all this weird stuff happened. Let's at least investigate it. And a lot of people are going, no, that's just cope. It's not going to change anything. I mean, that's what they want. That's what I think people have to understand. A large portion of all of this is just gaslighting. It's the media using their position of power um, and their control, obviously, of the narrative to try to discourage people in general. And they do this on everything. It's whenever they do the wrong side of history. It's whenever they try to tell you that you're like a racist, that the family's bad, that like all of this stuff that it's so much of it is just to gaslight you. It's to discourage you. It's to make you give up before you've even tried to resist them. And this has been the problem. And this is one of the reasons the right has lost most battles for like the last 60 years. Something gets a little bit challenging, something doesn't exactly go your way, and you throw a temper tantrum and you take your ball and you go home. And maybe what's going to happen is Trump is going to lose. Maybe every single court case is going to go in Biden's favor. Maybe they're going to keep finding ballots. Maybe they're going to throw out all the military ballots. But if that happens, that's it. If that happens and you lose, then you lose. Please list the issues with sources. I'm not going to go into all of it. You can go look them up. Other people have done a better job of compiling them than I did. But that's not really what this stream is necessarily about. So, yeah, it's don't give up. I mean, look, are we probably fucked? Is Biden probably going to win because of the snakes in the media and the snakes in government and the Democratic controlled cities? I mean, that's a distinct possibility. But the least you can do at this point, the absolute least you can do, is not tell other people to give up and not to tell Trump to just quietly accept this lying down. Because, I don't know, you don't want to hear about it anymore. The absolute least you can do is stand by the president. I don't get why that's like such a crazy position to take. That sort of thing. But that's the case. And let's say even if there was no electoral fraud, I don't accept the legitimacy of democracy. And I'm a rightist and Trump's a rightist. So I think even if Biden did legitimately win the election, he supports the slaughter of the unborn. So, yeah, I mean, Trump should try to do shenanigans himself. I mean, this is about survival. This is about, like, fundamental shit. This isn't, like, there's this idea it's just politics, and that's the kind of, like, retarded, lame stuff, narrative that they try to force upon us. That, oh, we can all sing Kumbaya, none of these things matter. Like, I really fucking hate it. It's like, oh, you spend 4 years saying, like, oh, these people are child molesters, these people are killing, like, thousands of people, like, millions of people in Iraq, it's a genocide, and then, like, everybody goes on and, yeah, and then suddenly everything's good again. So, don't give up. Don't just, like... And don't tell other people to give up, too. Because I know I've seen some people on Facebook who are like... someone posted a picture of... Like, from the... I forget which election it was. The Kennedy versus Nixon election. And he's like, well, it was obvious that there was... that there was electoral fraud that time, but Nixon was a real patriot, and he accepted that. And it's just like, so what you're saying is because things might get a little messy, to preserve democracy, we have to accept widespread voter fraud. I don't really understand how that makes sense. Andre treats me 20 Swedish krona and says, could you make a video about politics in Canada? I mean, I periodically do those. I'll probably be due one fairly soon. Turley, and I'll let you come on in a second. I'm just doing my monologue. I just had a bunch of stuff I wanted to get out of the way. So, I mean, this whole thing is like gaslighting. I think you can't give up until the end. That sort of thing. So looking at the current things, Georgia has been at 100% for 2 days now. They just keep... I'm not even saying have a military coup, but just do it whatever it takes. And if you saw Trump last night, he looked like... I don't think he looked defeated, but the man obviously hasn't slept in days. He's depressed. He's tired. He wants this thing to be over, but he's not giving up. And if he's going to be fighting for you, then you have to, at the very least, offer your passive support for him. And I don't know, maybe this makes me a cope stream or that kind of thing, but a good loser is a loser forever. So, that being said, Biden passed Trump in Georgia last night. Pennsylvania closed in, and then it just stopped being counted. No ballots have been counted in Arizona or Nevada basically since Election Day at this point in time. I keep hearing that there's a whole bunch of Trump votes in Arizona, but the Arizona state refuses to count the ballots. Nevada refuses to count the ballots. stuff keeps coming in Georgia. There might be some slight hope. I mean, who the hell knows at this point in time, because there's a bunch of military ballots left. But I mean, it literally just keeps happening where the counting stops, a whole bunch of Biden ballots come in, etc. So we're just gonna get into this all. I think I'm gonna get Torellian on now. Torellian, if you could come into Argent's stream server and come into general there, then we'll start talking about this. Uh, so. So yeah, so someone was saying like there's no evidence of voter fraud. This is just cope. I know some people were also saying like stuff. Oh, hey man, good to have you on.
Yeah, good to see you. Gosh, this is awful, ain't it?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I mean, I think ultimately well, I don't really want to kind of talk about what the actual chances of Trump pulling this off are at this point, because I just think it's kind of irrelevant to the question.
Yeah, I understand.
Like, I don't know if you're seeing this, but I've seen a lot of, like, people just say it's cope that we're not accepting it. And I mean this from people who are theoretically, like, right wing. Andre, I read your thing. You asked, could I make a video about politics in Canada? And I do periodically make videos about politics in Canada.
The idea that it's cope is just cope by people who don't want to consider the horrifying possibility that this is actually happening.
Sorry, I just have one more super chat. Virai Journey super chats me. The good fighters of old put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. Sun Tzu. Okay. So, I think that is a good point of it, and I think that is very understandable. That the idea that this level of like electoral shenanigans can go on in America, like this is to the same tier as like Venezuela or something at this point in time. Because like what I thought was going to happen, and Serp was right, and I think we were wrong, is the election was going to be way closer, and Trump was maybe going to win these states by a percentage points or two, and they were going to make like a maybe 100,000 ballots max. I didn't think we were going to get into the millions.
Yeah, it really is quite brazen. I was shocked. Just last night, Serp was explaining to me the mechanics of voter fraud in this instance, and I just kept asking questions that boiled down to, but how can they do this? How is this even possible? What?
Yeah, because I think because you and I obviously are from Canada, and Canada has a lot of problems, but like voter fraud really isn't a thing here, outside of maybe certain cases in Quebec. Because I think there was probably quite a bit of voter fraud during the referendums.
Yeah.
Probably on both sides. But yeah, so like my experience, because I worked for and my dad also worked for the a federal election government. So there's the Elections Canada, which is like an independent federal organization. So they train people to do voter counting, and there's like a very like well established simple process with manuals and stuff like that. And it's kind of the same thing for a provincial election. So like, because I think all these things are handled by partisans in the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be very technically it's under the district attorney.
Oh,
At the
the
state
state.
level.
Yeah, but states, district attorneys, I think, are elected.
Oh, yeah. Um, that's true. And basically, it's controlled at county offices by often by Democrats, right? In the major cities, because, well, in the United States, almost every city with more than, say, 300,000 people is run by a Democrat. So it does typically give Democrats disproportionate control over the um, counting of the votes.
I think another thing that just you and I aren't really used to is, with the exception of Vancouver, there aren't political parties at a municipal level in Canada.
No, no, there really aren't. People just run as independents.
Because I mean, you'll have people who are like Olivia Chow, who are more endorsed by like the NDP, and you'll have people like John Tory, who are more endorsed by the Liberals. But it's you don't really have the same degree of party solidarity and partisanship. At the same
No.
time, though, I do think you see. I mean, I think in most countries, left wing parties do better in cities, but I think America's like the biggest divide of like any developed country.
Yeah, it probably goes all the way back to the 1960s, to be honest. What with the civil rights movement and all that.
Yeah, I think it's also just that it's a lot more partisan. Um, a lot more positions are partisan instead of civil service. 'Cause, I mean, the civil service is biased, but I think in general, even a left wing civil service is nowhere near as bad as uh, the way they do it. I'm just looking at a couple. Let me just see. Just looking at a couple major European cities and seeing what they're like.
Yeah. Someone in the chat mentioned the Twitter fact checking, and it's really absurd. If you even make a tweet mentioning voter fraud and you're a complete nobody, uh, they're going to link a fact checked alongside the tweet, uh, basically saying that this has been debunked now.
Hmm.
But who will fact check the fact checkers?
Well, my favorite one was Jim's Who Will Bully the Bully Hunters. I'm just looking at London Assembly. So, the Parliament for the City of London is 12 Labour, 8 Conservative, 2 Green, 2 Brexit, 1 Lib Dem. So, I know the Conservatives suck, but I'm just saying it's not like London is not nearly as partisan as like any city in the U.S. Um,
And that's freaking London.
yeah, I mean, let me think. What's it like a? Let me see what Amsterdam is. Because I'd imagine it's very. Let's see here. I think.
Yeah. Where are the Russian hackers?
So Amsterdam has a left wing majority, but the center right party does have at least some seats. Like at least I think they at least bother to run candidates, whereas they don't. Probably a part of it is also just because it's a two-party system. Um,
Mm-hmm. So things just have a tendency to consolidate by nature.
I think to a certain extent, by the NDP existing, and somewhat splitting the left, it makes this kind of like partisan consolidation a lot harder.
Yeah.
Because in like Toronto, it's I think it's more liberal, but there's enough conservatives and enough NDP that you don't get like a single party state.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, I kind of I don't know. What do you think about the all the people who are saying like we have to just give up at this point? I mean,
When a mugger, no, you don't give up. If you just give up, you're they're only going to, well, push you to the ground and bend you over and, well, double whatever they were going to do to you before. um, it's just going to make everything worse, I think. If you give up and if you don't show any pushback whatsoever.
I kind of feel if Trump is going to get defeated, he should just ride it out and force them to remove him from office by force. Because I kind of feel like if he concedes, then that just makes it legitimate and that lets them get away with everything.
Yeah, we need to make what is happening look as illegitimate as possible and really expose what's going on. And conceding right away is just going to make it look relatively clear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because the thing is, like, it is still physically possible for Trump to win, and I'm not trying to do. You know what else? I'm tired of the Bernie can still win and the Jeb can still win memes.
Yeah, it's clearly not the same thing when you're dealing with obvious voter fraud. Like I said, the people saying that this is cope are actually the real copers because they just can't process how horrifying it is that this can happen in the United States on such a scale, no less.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
Don't
like,
be gaslit.
and I mean, I think that's ultimately what it's all about. Is I mean, the media's always kind of sucked, but it's so flagrant now. And I was ranting about this last night, but they're just so passive aggressive and catty like a fucking woman with the whole Trump makes baseless claims of electoral fraud. And it's like, well, you can say that his evidence is wrong. I mean, you can say that you don't buy it, but it's not as if he hasn't presented anything. It's not as if you go to Twitter, there isn't like hundreds of videos of people throwing out ballots or something like that.
No, see, when you see those people writing ballots, what they're doing is they're taking invalidly filled out ballots and they're copying them so that they can help the poor people who accidentally filled them out invalidly. Is one response I heard.
The poorly educated black people who, because the government has let them down, aren't able to fill out a ballot, but if they went to Edinburgh University, they would excel at whatever course they went to.
That was really funny. Well, of course they would excel. They would just pass them.
Yeah, because I think some universities now they've added in adjusting grades based on race. I mean, this is slightly off topic. The only kind of case of stuff like that I kind of support is for people with disabilities. Maybe, because I just kind of feel that's different, because that's an actual...
Well, if you mean adjusting grades, then no. If you mean offering some kind of accommodations,
I mean accommodations, yeah.
Yeah, I mean accommodations that compensate for non-intellectual impairment makes sense.
Or even if they want to, the government wants to offer tax incentives
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
to
I'm
just
fine with that.
hire mentally disabled people to do manual labor jobs or something like that.
Yeah, just something basic so that they could do something
Right.
and
Yeah.
have a bit of dignity. But that's, clearly nothing. There's no symmetry between that and the mass affirmative action that's practiced in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
An analog of that for black people would be, just encouraging them to go out into a field and pick cotton for a decent wage, maybe some lodging. Couldn't help it. Sorry.
Yeah. So people in the chat are saying the concern is that some people think Trump will be assassinated if he loses. I I don't know, but like the thing is, like Serp was right, and I think I was like wrong because I like I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought there'd be cheating and that kind of thing, but I didn't think it would reach this levels. I don't even think Florida reached these levels because I think in Florida it was really really close. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but and they were trying to move it like a couple tens of thousands. It wasn't nearly this amount, and so like there was someone who keeps posting under my videos that Biden legitimately won all these states and that it's cope on our perspective. Like in particular, he was talking about me saying Rhode Island might have gone for Trump. It's I think at the very least, even if there was no electoral fraud, none of this I think has been very transparent. Like
Well, they're literally preventing people from observing the process. So yeah, they're literally blocking windows to the polling centers. So it is literally not transparent.
yeah, in terms of like visual transparency, but like I don't think it was particularly transparent when they just stopped counting votes. Like I did try to look it up and they didn't always provide like explanations for that. They just or like in the case of Pennsylvania, they said we're not going to count anymore and then everybody went home and then they started counting again. And it's like if you're trying to show that the election is fair and legitimate, preventing people from observing the voting process at all, I think is like the best way to show it. It's like the people who their response to QAnon was screaming that no one should be allowed to accuse to say that there's pedophiles in the government and like going into full on cover up mode. I don't think
Wait,
that's
what
a
are people saying that?
yeah. A lot of people were saying like that QAnon should be criminalized and stuff. Um, and that it was dangerous. Well, obviously they say that people who believe it are mentally ill. I mean, I don't believe in QAnon either, but the idea that there is a lot of pedophiles in government is kind
Yeah,
of
there's
proven.
there's two parts to QAnon. The first part is that there is a satanic pedophile cabal in the government. And the second part is that Trump has a plan to stop them and that there's, a huge counter cabal. What happens when the boomer Waffen discover that only the first one is true?
And I mean, it's like I don't know. It's kind of proven. Like at the very least, even if it's not proven, I think Epstein has shown that there is something to it. That there is this seedy underbelly that's long suspected. I mean, elites at all points in history, with the possible exception of maybe when Europe was actually Christian, have engaged in this kind of behavior en
And it
masse.
even and it even does pop up there. It's just much more firmly opposed. You
Yeah, and
know?
I imagine they punish people when it comes out. They punish people when it came out.
Yeah, yeah. But you definitely did have sodomy cropping up here and there.
Right.
Uh,
Mhm. Somebody else said, yeah, there might be recounts. And I've seen a lot of like people say like, oh, well, last time they had recounts, and Trump only gained a couple hundred votes, and it's like, I don't. Are people just incapable of seeing that things like? I'm just trying to think of it. Are people incapable of distinguishing between things if they have the same words in them? I'm not trying to be
Yes.
like mean. I'm not trying to like say. But to me, it's just like if someone says that in Wisconsin, I'd say last time it was a more normal election. This time you had, last time you didn't have 90% voter turnout. You didn't have all these mail in ballots. I think the situation is a bit different this time than it was last time.
Assume that people can't draw basic distinctions, and you will never be disappointed.
Like a thing I've seen is the whole like count every vote and stop the counting and how those are contradictory. And it's like, okay, but he means count every legal vote and don't count votes after election day. And it's kind of straightforward, but and once again, I think it's they just kind of bought into the media narrative, and I think it's just yeah. I mean, I really hate the media. We've
I
been
mean,
talking, yeah.
the left thinks that long lineups or voter ID, that's voter suppression, but mass voter fraud, nah. And so they think they can do whatever they want to subvert the system because my popular will and my voter suppression. So if they're making up ballots in their mind, they're just balancing things out. It's like an affirmative action, but for voting.
And I mean, sorry if I'm just repeating a bunch of stuff, but we had a good conversation about this last night. Like neither you or I really like democracy.
No,
We both
no.
think it's a sham, but and it's a, I know I'm using the meme, but we live in a society, and if the society we live in says that democracy decides who's in power, I'd rather we had like a system with basic rules rather than
Yeah.
complete anarchy.
When I'm if we're playing basketball, I'm not gonna double dribble, even though I think the rules against double dribbling are kind of dumb. But if my opponent starts double dribbling, I'm gonna call foul.
Right. I mean, I don't really like basketball, but
If
it's.
that's what we're playing, that's what we're playing.
But I mean, like a basic social contract that allows society to function is that you have rules and you try to enforce them in a fair and consistent manner. Obviously, that's not always the case. There's a lot of exceptions to things. There's a lot of times when things need to be changed. I mean, you and I have talked about this. The concept of universal rights is kind of a misnomer. At the same time, though, that's not an excuse that allows governments to act arbitrary. Um,
Yeah,
if kings acted
acting.
tyrannical and arbitrary, there's a good chance they're not going to be king for long.
Yeah. The arbitrary trait in CK2 is one of the only ones that has no plus side.
Because, like, I mean, the Holy Roman Empire, and you've done a lot of videos. By the way, if you guys haven't already, definitely check out Torellian's channel. He started to do YouTube videos. He'll probably do more in the future. Let me just post a link to it. So he mostly talks about the Holy Roman Empire and just kind of stuff from the medieval. Was it also the Renaissance period? Would you say?
Yeah, medieval and early modern periods.
About the Holy Roman Empire. Like he has a good video about imperial cities and imperial knights and
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
I hope at some point I can cover most aspects of the Imperial Constitution and its development. I'm also gonna make a fairly long and just for fun video about my favorite castles sometime this month. So stay tuned.
Mm-hmm. Um, Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think that's something we need a lot of. We need more of is just people to do um, just content. Like it doesn't have to be explicitly political, but trying to trying to get kind of our side, or at least a side that doesn't view certain things as being inherently degenerate. Could you just send me a link to your channel maybe on Discord? Just I'm having
Yeah,
trouble finding it in
yeah,
search, and I'll just post it
yeah.
so people can find it. So, I think in Nevada they are accepting mail-in ballots
There we go.
up to a week after the election. Um, at
Which is
the
insane.
mm-hmm.
But
And
but but it's an emergency.
like, and someone pointed out, you and I could probably count the ballots in Nevada, but had them counted by this point.
Yeah,
Like
it
you and I
would have
and
been us
Sir,
too.
because there's not even that many, but like we could probably just sit down and do it. Um,
See what the population in Nevada is. There are 3 million people in Nevada. That's it.
and I think most of them have already been they have already voted, but
Think,
so, sorry people if I'm jumping around a bit, but we were watching the Trump press conference. I almost cried. Like I actually
I
had
wanted to
tears
give
in
him
my
a
eyes.
hug. I wanted to give him a hug. And I
Because
mean, I have my issues with Trump, but the way he's being treated is just complete shit.
and I mean we've talked about this and Serp has said this. Trump is a deeply flawed man, as all of us are. But I think in comparison to most politicians in the U.S., I think despite his persona, he is a lot more genuine. Um, like he's not. I don't. I just feel he's like not as pretentious. Like he likes his ice cream. He likes his Big Macs. He doesn't feel the need to like signal all the time. I mean, he has his extremely fancy stuff too, but that's just he likes that.
Well,
Like
in this day and age, that's actually the more unpretentious thing. I mean, most of the super rich these days live in very, very Spartan glass and concrete experimental houses that are complete abomination. Trump is very showy, kitschy, and gaudy, and to be honest, it's charming.
right, and I think like even though like we both agree he's exceedingly narcissistic, but I do think he cares about the average American, or at least doesn't have open contempt for them in the way someone like Hillary does.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard him say anything like basket of deplorables or Obama saying they clutch to God and guns and antipathy towards people who aren't like them or America's a nation of haters. I mean, I think one of the things that people like about Trump is even if a lot of the time it's really kind of over the top, I think people miss there being some sort of optimism in politics. Because
Yeah.
I do think for all the paranoia of the Cold War era, and I know Star Trek is cringe, but I do think it does kind of play to after World War II, there was a feeling of that there was like kind of hope in the future. I think the Victorian era was a bit like this too. We're going to build space colonies. We're going to build fusion power. Like all this like amazing stuff is going to happen. And I think there is a poverty of ambition, like where rather than colonizing Mars, the goal is to transplant wombs into biological males. Like,
Make literal butt babies.
yeah. Um, Just
What
looking
an
at people in the
absolute
chat.
nightmare.
So people are saying, I would have for sure, at least you can tell Trump cares about America. I mean, like, the other thing about Trump is I don't think he's ever really made an excuse for any of his divorces or affairs, or like said it was okay. I mean, maybe he has, but
He doesn't pretend to be some super moral person the way, say, John McCain did.
yeah, I mean, it's maybe that's kind of a noblesse oblige thing because the new rich, I find tend to be a lot more classist. Um, often.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they have to signal how great they are, and such as that, with a lot of the nouveau riche, they are desperate to maintain their station.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant race to maintain their lifestyle and station. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who make, say $200,000 or $300,000 a year, um, are still in debt because they live such a lavish lifestyle relative to what they have. Whereas once you reach a certain threshold of wealth, you don't really have to worry much.
Right. What was I gonna say? Just another. Sorry, people in the chat for jumping around a bit. But what was I gonna say? A message that I'm seeing is that Trump abandoned his base because he theoretically lost like a couple percentage points with white males. And I mean, I kind of feel like, can you even really say that if there's as much voter fraud as people think there is?
Yeah. So, firstly, they might have just made up a bunch of white male ballots, but secondly, um, it's just regression to the mean.
Let me
Trump
just look up, see how much it actually was.
Trump did what I assume, presumably remarkably well with white males last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's only natural that you're going to see a bit of a regression uh, in the following election. It, it's pretty basic statistical stuff.
Let me see here. I'm just trying to find where the. And I mean, I see some people saying that, like, Trump. Let's see here. 2020 election. That, like, he betrayed his base. I think Richard Spencer was making that point.
Oh,
Um,
Richard Spencer is a sissy boy.
because like supposedly more Hispanics voted for him. I mean, I'm sure they did, but like Texas and Florida aren't good examples because a lot of the Hispanics in Texas are Tejanos who are like have been there from like before Texas was a state. And I'd imagine historically a lot of Hispanics, because there's always been Hispanics in the Southwest. There's probably always been some immigration from Mexico.
A
And I'd,
lot of Hispanics hate Black Lives Matter. That's what this comes down to. They hate Black Lives Matter, and they're attracted to Trump's machismo. And so they're voting for him for that reason. It's not because he betrayed his base. A lot of the whole, oh, he betrayed his base thing comes from the fact that a lot of people like Richard Spencer legitimately, one, thought that they won him the election, and two, thought he was going to be the reincarnation of Hitler, Vishnu.
mm-hmm.
And he wasn't, and he never said he was going to be. Um, it was pretty obvious if you actually listen that he is a civic nationalist, not a white nationalist. But a lot of people memed themselves into. Well, they didn't even have to meme themselves. The media memed them into thinking he was Hitler, and these were the people who thought it was a good thing. Unlike the average liberal, who thought it was a bad thing. And yes, Richard Spencer is a liberal, except on immigration.
Mm-hmm. Um. So Trump, I think they said because Trump only won 65% of the white vote. No, 56% of the white vote. I mean, he still won a clear majority. I mean, the truth of the matter is, you have to at least get some Hispanics on board uh,
Mm-hmm.
in order to make this stuff. Um, so people are saying this is a cope stream. Um, people are saying Trump's berging out, but not doing. I mean, he's launching a bunch of lawsuits. He's not conceding. I mean, okay, so for the people who are saying this is cope, what is it that you want us to do? Like, I'm not trying to be that like even insulting. I'm just wondering, like, what is the expectation? Should we just say Biden won and he legitimately won? I mean, is that like no? I'm not even trying to be sarcastic. I think that's a reasonable question to ask. So maybe just post in the chat, and I'll read it out without any sarcasm.
What I'm wondering is what arguments do they have that the votes were legitimate? Because do they have any rebuttals?
The answer I've seen is that I don't understand why how the votes work, and that the fact like I thought he was ahead in Rhode Island is because I don't understand like how votes were coming in from urban areas. I just going by like what I empirically see, and in that case, like in a lot of these cases, it just stopped. A whole bunch of votes came in, and it didn't. It didn't necessarily show where the votes were coming in from. I mean, even if you look at the maps now, that doesn't look like it's updating. Like, and I thought 100% meant 100%. Apparently, there's a caveat, which I'm not sure if they actually even list on Real Clear Politics. Let me just look at this, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm stupid, but I'm just seeing if there's a let's see here. I'm just trying to see if there, because someone told me that the percentage doesn't include mail-in ballots, but I don't see that. So, yeah. I don't see where it says that thing. I mean, if you want to talk about Sessions, Serp knows a lot more about that. What he said more or less was that Sessions screwed up, didn't stop the voter fraud in the midterm election, and he got rid of him on that basis. So, I mean, you can believe that or not, but someone says Biden did legitimately win. It's the truth. I mean, once again, if Biden did win, like, I don't get what's so bad about. Because weren't they saying the other day when people were saying Trump won, we have to wait until like this thing's over?
I don't know, man. You could assert that Biden legitimately won all you want, unless you have an argument against, unless you have a rebuttal of all the. There's really not much to say.
Even if that is the case, like, I don't know, why are they so against, like,
why are they unwilling to allow observers? Why was there this massive spike out of nowhere?
Why did they stop counting and then start counting again after they said they weren't going to? I mean, there's a lot of questions here. And at the very least, I don't get why we can't just stop for a minute and try to address these things.
Why were turnouts ridiculously high in swing states? Higher than they were in 2016, I should add. Significantly higher. You know, you had turnouts like 90%, which just don't happen.
Someone's saying what's bad is losing credibility if you defend a lie. So, I've seen this, that it's cope, and that,
But we're not defending a lie. At worst, we might be defending a falsehood.
Exaggeration.
Or an exaggeration, but we're not defending a lie. And in fact, you lose credibility by defending the lie that Joe Biden won legitimately. Honestly, I think if you don't think there's voter fraud at this point, I have a bridge to sell you.
Um. So, like, I don't know. I mean, people can say it's cope. People can say whatever. I know people are going to say this stream is this because I'm addressing things, but I mean, ultimately, I just let this thing play out. Um, Maybe because of the lockdowns, voter turnout increased. I'm all for questioning the election. It's pretty obvious fraud is going on. So I don't know what the whole thing is. I don't want to attribute positions to people they might not hold. Like I don't want to say that the people who are saying that Biden legitimately won are coping because that's what they're doing to us. But I don't know. I just don't get how like not doing legal challenges and stuff like that is of any like how that's like makes things worse at this point in time. I mean,
It doesn't. If someone tries to violate you in prison, you don't bend over and let them do it because then they're gonna do it again and again and again. No, what you're supposed to do is put up a tough fight, and even if you do succumb, they're gonna think twice about doing it again, and they're gonna go after someone a bit easier.
I mean, here's the other.
Apologies for the crude analogy, but
That's fine. I mean, like, here's the question. Um, does it even matter if Biden cheated or not? Because neither you. I know we just said the thing about how we live in a society, we have to kind of abide by the standards. At the same time, though, Biden is a. Biden and his party celebrate the mass murder of the unborn. I think it was in Minneapolis. I was watching The Remnant. They had Abortion Providers Appreciation Day. Like,
it's insane. I
like,
I have no idea how they can say that abortion is healthcare. I don't know what they're smoking.
um, it's let's see. Someone's saying it doesn't matter if Biden cheated. Fraud has been going on forever, and no one wants to stop it. I mean,
It's unusually flagrant, and here's the thing: if fraud has been going on forever, then you take the very flagrant instances and you use that to discredit the system as well as you can.
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Once again, maybe I'm willing to accept that maybe I'm wrong on this one. I don't think so. I think at the very least, let's just not. Let's just let the like. I trust the plan for lack of a better term. Like, don't give up until they drag Trump out. Um,
Make it look as illegitimate as possible. If you want
mhm.
to discredit the system, you don't just peaceably and you don't peacefully accept this kind of thing if you want to delegitimize the system.
Because I mean, I think at the moment the absolute least people could do is just say, let the president try to deal with this and give him the support. Um, I know that that's like, but just don't let the media is trying to gaslight you. They do this every single time. Um, it's and let's just maybe finish off with this. I think I hate journalists more than just about any other people. Like I hate them more than I hate people who make pornography. I hate them more than drug dealers. Because
Well, as Kierkegaard said, he would rather his son be a prostitute than his daughter be a prostitute than his son be a journalist.
because I mean, those things are bad, but journalists are guilty of killing the truth, which is one of the worst sins there is. I mean, Dante has them at the lowest circle of hell, right? People who,
Yeah, people who betray trust specifically.
and they present themselves in a certain fashion that they're like these righteous defenders of the public interest, that their shit doesn't stink, that they're right, and they're just like so catty, and they're just like women in the way they deal with it. Like, I just, as like a male, and I'm not Mr. Macho, I'm not like Mr. Chad, but having like these catty articles from CBC saying like Trump makes baseless accusations about electoral fraud, and it's like, it's time for Trump to accept that sort of thing, while saying that they're like, stuff like that. Um, and I just think they're just garbage. Do you think though that people have lost trust in the media at all, or
A lot of people have. If you ask Serp and a lot of other friends that I know, everyone is openly talking about how the elections are fake.
I mean, he lives in Montana, but like that kind of doesn't matter. If anything, that's kind of good if there's some degree of solidarity in red states that this isn't legitimate. That's almost better if, like, oh, apparently Pennsylvania just flipped to Biden. Let's see here. Yeah, it just flipped.
What a fucking joke.
So it flipped. Georgia flipped. Votes keep coming in. Oh, look, so Georgia's down to 99% counting now. I don't think Nevada's being counted any. Arizona's being counted. So, yeah, I don't know. I've just been doing these streams in the morning because, I mean, no one knows what the fuck's going on, but I just need to blow off some steam, you know?
So I don't blame you.
So.
That is the appropriate response.
So I think I might just end it here. Thanks for coming on, man. I'll try to have you on more often. And
Yeah.
and people in the chat, I'm gonna repost it. Please go and subscribe to Terrellian's channel. He produces some good stuff. Harass him into making more content.
Yeah. Yeah, I succumb to bullying pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. God bless.
Little known secret.
God bless, man. So, thank you, everybody.